Have you ever been going about your day totally calm and then suddenly, bam, a wave of joy hits you? Or maybe a sudden jolt of anxiety out of nowhere? Well, you're not alone. Emotions are, without a doubt, the most powerful and, let's be honest, mysterious forces in our lives. They drive pretty much everything we do. They color our memories. They basically define what it means to be human. So today, we're going to pop the hood and take a look at our own inner world. Just let that sink in for a second. The invisible architecture. This means emotions aren't just random feelings that happen to us. No, they're the actual framework, the scaffolding that shapes every single thought, every action, and every memory you have. They are the silent architects, building our reality from the inside out.
And this really gets us to the core idea for this entire explainer. I want you to forget everything you thought about emotions being these, soft, fuzzy, abstract things. The best way, the most accurate way to understand them is to see them for what they really are. They are the biological software running your entire consciousness. They're your brain's fundamental operating system.
All right, let's dive in. Here's the game plan for today. First, we'll look at your brain's operating system, the biological code behind what you feel. Then we'll get into something called the Primal Fire Alarm, which explains why you so often feel before you think. After that, we'll explore how scientists are trying to map our inner worlds, we'll meet some of the emotional archivists who cataloged our feelings, and then we'll see how all of this sets the stage for translating human feeling into machine code. Okay, so let's get right into it. The first big thing to really wrap your head around is that emotions aren't just abstract concepts. They are tangible, physical events happening inside your body, all driven by the incredible chemistry factory that is your brain. So what we actually experience as a feeling is really just the effect of these powerful chemical messengers, hormones and neurotransmitters. A good way to think of them is like little chemical envelopes carrying very specific instructions. When your brain spots a threat, boom, it sends out adrenaline and cortisol. That's the message telling your body to get ready for fight or flight. When you feel a real connection with someone, that's oxytocin delivering a message of social bonding. These chemicals are literally the code that writes the story of how you feel, moment to moment. And this brings us to what is probably one of the most important insights from neuroscience. Seriously, we're going to slow down here for a second, because once you get this one point, it changes everything about how you see your own reactions. It all comes down to the sequence of events that happens inside your brain. This is it. This is the whole ballgame. Let that sink in. Your emotional response, that gut feeling, that jolt, it's an instant automatic reaction that happens before your conscious, rational mind has even had a chance to boot up and process what's going on. It's a primal survival mechanism, something hardwired into our biology over millions of years to keep us safe. And this breakdown here is so fascinating. It shows you that split-second process. So imagine you hear a loud bang outside. Instantly, your brain's fire alarm goes off. That's step 2, that immediate jolt of fear. It's a subconscious full-body alert. It's only after that alarm is blaring that your conscious mind, let's call it the building's security team, finally arrives on the scene to analyze the data and say, okay, everybody calm down. It was just a car backfire. The feeling, it always gets a head start. So if our emotions are these super fast biological events, the next logical question is, how on earth do we even begin to organize them, right? How do you create a map for something so complex and, frankly, so personal? This has been a fundamental challenge for scientists for decades. Well, researchers have come up with 2 main ways to tackle this. On the left, you've got the categorical model. This one treats emotions like separate individual boxes with clear labels like happy, sad, or angry. Think of it like having a set of primary colors for our feelings. On the right is the dimensional model, which sees emotions more like a continuous spectrum, plotting them on axes from, say, positive to negative, or calm to intense. That's more like a color wheel, showing all the different shades and gradients in between. For today, we're going to focus on that first one, the categorical model, which is all about naming our feelings. So where did these categories even come from? To really get the categorical model, we need to meet the key figures who took on this massive task of cataloging human feeling. I like to think of them as the great emotional archivists. Our first archivist is Paul Ekman, an absolute giant in this field. His work completely changed how we understand emotion because he focused not just on the feeling inside, but on how it is physically expressed on the human face for the whole world to see. Ekman's entire career was basically driven by this one incredibly powerful question. He wanted to find out if certain core emotional expressions are something we learn from our culture
or if they're biologically innate, hardwired into every single one of us as a species, a universal human language.
And the evidence he found was just incredible. He traveled to these super remote communities in Papua New Guinea that had almost zero contact with the outside world, and he found they could easily recognize the emotions on the faces of Westerners. And even more amazing is this. Studies of athletes who were blind from birth show that they make the exact same faces of joy and victory and anguish and defeat as sighted athletes. Think about that. They never saw anyone make those faces to learn them. It's just part of our shared human code.
Now, to study all this systematically, Ekman developed this brilliant tool, the Facial Action Coding System, or FACS. So instead of using a subjective label like happy, FACS objectively breaks down any facial expression into its basic parts, the specific muscle movements, which he called action units. A smile is no longer just a smile. It becomes a precise code for the specific muscles that pull the lip corners up and create those crow's feet around the eyes.
Okay, I'm going to pause here for a second because this is the absolute game changer. The crucial point is this. By turning these subjective human expressions into a numerical code based on muscle movements, Ekman created a standardized objective language. He literally turned the human face into something a machine can read and understand. This system is the essential bridge connecting human feeling to artificial intelligence.
So, if Paul Ekman gave us those foundational, primary colors of universal emotion, then our next archivist, Brené Brown, came along and gave us the full artist's palette. She basically argued that if we really want to understand ourselves, we need to zoom in and develop a much more nuanced and rich vocabulary for our feelings.
Brené Brown's work, especially in her book Atlas of the Heart, is all about identifying and defining 87 distinct emotions and experiences. And her main argument is so powerful. She says that having the precise language to name what we're feeling is the first and most critical step toward actually managing those emotions and connecting with other people in a meaningful way. And what's so cool about her approach is how she organizes these feelings. It's not just a random list. She groups them into the context or the situations where they tend to show up. So, for example, she maps out all the different feelings you might have in places we go when we're hurting versus places we go with others. It gives us a really practical map for navigating our own inner landscape.
So, let's bring this all together. We've gone on a journey from the raw biology of emotion deep inside our brains, all the way to these systematic libraries that researchers have built to help us name and understand what it is we feel. This whole thing, this is the human side of the emotion equation.
So what are the big things to take away from all this? First, remember that emotions are your biological operating system, driven by chemistry. Second, that primal fire alarm you feel before you think. It's an instinct. Third, pioneers like Ekman and Brown have given us a map, a categorical system of labels to help us identify our feelings. And finally, and this is so important for where we're going next, this human map is the absolute foundation for teaching machines how to understand us.
And that leaves us with one last fascinating question. We've explored the biological roots of our emotions and the human-made systems for classifying them. We have the map. So the next great challenge is, how do we teach a machine how to read it? And well, that's a story for our next explainer.